The truth about being chosen is not wrapped in glory or comfort. It's wrapped in mystery. Those whom the world often overlooks are the very ones God chooses to shape history. And yet, these chosen ones are rarely understood, not because they are complicated, but because the language they speak is foreign to those who have not suffered as they have. To be chosen is to walk a path that few applaud. You are called not to blend in, but to stand apart, and that standing apart often looks like isolation, rejection, or invisibility. People love labels. They love categories. They love to define others in ways that make sense to them. But the chosen ones don't fit in their boxes. They don't follow the crowd. Not because they are trying to be rebellious, but because they are wired differently. They can't pretend to enjoy meaningless conversations. They can't force themselves into environments that drain their spirit. They're not antisocial. They are just finely tuned to things that others are numb to. They carry weight in their soul that most cannot see. And for this reason, they are often misunderstood, avoided, or even mocked. In truth, many chosen ones have spent years trying to figure out what's wrong with them. Why they don't quite fit in, even in spaces that claim to be spiritual or safe. Why their friendships feel one-sided. Why their presence intimidates some and draws others like a magnet. They're not seeking attention. They often want the opposite. But their very presence disrupts the atmosphere, because what they carry cannot be hidden forever. The light they bear irritates the darkness in others, and while they may not understand it fully, others sense it. Sometimes that sensing comes out as admiration. More often, it comes out as subtle resistance or outright rejection. Being misunderstood can become a silent prison. You walk through life wondering why you feel things deeper, why you dream bigger, why you cry harder, why you can't ignore injustice, even when everyone else seems numb to it. But here's the deeper truth. This isn't a flaw. It's not emotional sensitivity. It's spiritual sensitivity. The chosen ones are gifted with vision. Vision to see what others overlook, vision to feel what others ignore, vision to believe what others doubt. And vision, when not understood, can look like madness. And so the world calls them too intense, too quiet, too different, too much. And the chosen ones retreat, not because they're weak, but because their spirit cannot thrive in noise. They are not built for popularity. They are built for purpose. But that purpose takes time to unfold. And in that unfolding, there is much misunderstanding. Even family members don't always get them. Even church communities can misread them. Because the chosen don't announce their greatness. They don't chase platforms. They don't need titles to function in their gift. And that confuses those who believe visibility equals value. When the chosen ones speak, their words carry weight. Not because they are loud, but because their voice comes from a deep well. When they love sacrificially. When they hurt deeply. And when they believe with a purity that shakes heaven. But because all of this is internal, others often miss the magnitude of what's happening inside them. They walk among the crowd with power and prophecy in their belly, yet appear ordinary on the outside. Like David tending sheep while carrying the oil of kingship. Like Esther dressing in royal robes while fasting in silence. They move quietly, yet the heavens roar when they pray. And so, misunderstood they remain, for a while, until the time comes when what was invisible becomes undeniable, until the season shifts and the weight of what they've carried breaks through the surface. But before that moment comes, the misunderstanding is necessary. It purifies, it protects, it humbles. It keeps the chosen hidden until they are ready to be revealed. And even then, the world may still misunderstand them. But by then, it won't matter. Because they no longer live for the approval of the crowd. They live for the whisper of the one who chose them before the foundation of the world. There are moments in the life of a chosen one where the atmosphere shifts, not with fanfare, but with a holy stillness that only the Spirit can detect. Something massive has just occurred. You may not see it yet in the natural, but the unseen realm has already moved. The alignment has changed. A divine rearrangement has taken place, and the chosen ones have been repositioned. What looked like delay was actually precision. What seemed like silence was actually orchestration. And now, a new order has been initiated, not by man's command, but by divine timing. Something that had been long resisted, delayed, or buried has just been released. A breakthrough has been issued in the invisible world, and its ripple effects are already reaching the earth. This kind of shift is not loud. It doesn't happen with loud announcements or public acknowledgement. It's not found in headlines or social media posts. It happens in the quiet places, where angels walk and destiny is decided. And yet, it is more powerful than anything the world can see. The tables have turned. The veil has lifted. Those who have labored in silence, those who have obeyed in obscurity, those who have remained faithful in rejection, something has just broken open for them. A season has ended, and a new one has begun, even if the external world hasn't caught up yet. In the spirit, the page has turned. This divine shift often comes after a long season of silence, a time where the chosen one begins to question whether anything is really happening. They have prayed, fasted, worshipped, and remained obedient even when there was no confirmation. And just when they had almost accepted the quiet as permanent, something moved. Heaven leaned in. The unseen realms responded. A door was opened that no man can shut. This is not a surface-level moment. It's a foundational change. The favor that was once withheld is now flowing. The blockages that once held you back are now removed. The people who were blind to your value are now feeling the weight of their error. And though they may not say it aloud, they sense that something has shifted. And it didn't shift in their favor. This kind of moment confuses the watchers. They can't put their finger on it. But something about you feels different. You haven't announced anything. You haven't changed your clothes or your tone. But there's a weight on you now, a divine authority. You walk into rooms differently. You speak with more clarity. You no longer entertain what drains you. You're no longer apologizing for the anointing you carry, because something inside you has confirmed what you long suspected. You were never waiting on man. You were waiting on this shift, the one only God could bring. And now it has come. For some, this shift is restoration. For others, it is vindication. For many, it is promotion. But whatever form it takes, it always carries the mark of heaven. It does not require manipulation. It is not born of networking, nor earned by flattery. It is divine, pure, unstoppable. It is the result of alignment. You didn't chase it. It found you. You didn't force it. It was your portion. And though the journey here was painful, it was necessary to receive this level of trust from God. Because when the shift comes, it comes with responsibility. It comes with weight. You are now moving into places that require the depth only forged through your suffering. Others may feel it too, but differently. Those who once looked down on you are now strangely silent. Those who competed with you now seem uneasy. Those who discredited you are suddenly distant, because they sense the shift too, but they don't know how to explain it. The spiritual realm is speaking. And even those who ignored God's hand before can't deny what has happened. Some are weeping, not because they lost something tangible, but because they missed something eternal. They underestimated what God was doing in you. They misread your struggle as weakness, and now they are watching a strength rise from you that they never imagined. They mocked the process, but now they are witnessing the outcome. And yet, in the middle of all this, the chosen remain steady, not boastful, not bitter, but grounded, because they know this shift wasn't a reward, it was a responsibility. They are not stepping into ease, but into assignment. And with it comes more clarity, more grace, and more purpose. Something massive has indeed just happened. Heaven has spoken. The earth is responding. And those who have eyes to see are beginning to understand that this is not a moment. It is a movement. There is a deep irony in the story of the chosen ones. For so long, they have been the target of whispers, the subject of mockery, the ones quietly endured but rarely embraced. Many looked at their struggles and silently rejoiced, believing their own hands to be clean while their hearts were far from innocent. The chosen ones were watched, judged, and sometimes even set up to fail, all while their accusers smiled in public. But now, something unseen has unfolded, and those same voices have fallen silent. The laughter that once echoed behind your back has now turned into silent tears shed behind closed doors. This reversal is not loud or violent. It doesn't arrive with public disgrace or humiliation. Instead, it is personal, internal, deeply felt. Those who once celebrated your downfalls are now forced to sit in the stillness of their own conscience. They're not crying because of anything you did to them. They're crying because of what they did to you, or what they failed to do when they could have chosen kindness, truth, or compassion. The silence they once demanded from you has now turned inward, and in that silence, their hearts are finally hearing the truth. When someone undermines a chosen one, they rarely expect to be held accountable. They believe their actions are hidden, that no one truly sees. But chosen ones walk under divine surveillance. Every tear they cry is recorded. Every betrayal they endure is noticed. And now the scales are tipping, not in vengeance, but in balance. What was sown in secret is being reaped in the same hidden places. The ones who tried to dim your light are now sitting in the darkness of their own choices. They are crying not just from the consequences, but from the realization of what they've lost. Not a title or possession, but the chance to be connected to what God was doing through you. There is a pain that comes with missing your moment, and many are feeling that now. Behind their polished lives and curated images, there are silent breakdowns, emotional regret, and spiritual disconnection. They didn't know how much weight your presence carried until you pulled away. They didn't recognize the light in you until they could no longer access it. What they mocked in you was the very thing they were lacking in themselves, but they were too proud to admit it, and now they sit in silence, not with anger, but with the ache of missed opportunity. They had access to someone who was walking in grace, but they chose jealousy over joy, competition over connection, mockery over maturity. This is not about superiority. The chosen ones do not elevate themselves above others. They are often the most humble, the most self-sacrificing, the most patient. That's why the pain cut so deep when they were treated unfairly. It wasn't just about the hurt. It was about the betrayal of trust, the breaking of sacred bonds, the coldness shown toward a heart that only wanted to love and serve. But what man overlooks, God does not, and in due time he reveals what was hidden, not to shame anyone, but to restore balance. And when that restoration comes, it stings those who misjudged you. Not because they were punished, but because the truth can no longer be avoided. The private tears they now cry are the same ones you once shed. They are finally feeling what you carried in silence. They are encountering the weight of conviction. Their minds replay conversations, actions, missed chances to do the right thing. They are haunted not by you, but by the part of themselves they ignored for too long. And now, without an audience, without applause, they are face to face with the truth. You are not responsible for their tears. You did not cause them. They are the result of a divine mirror being placed before them. What they feel is the pain of recognizing they misread a soul that was sent to bless them. What they carry now is the ache of realizing the tables have turned, not through force, but through favor. And that favor cannot be stopped. So, though you may never hear their apologies, though the doors behind which they cry remain shut, know this: the heavens have seen both your tears and theirs. And what was done in secret is now being revealed in spirit. Justice has come, not through judgment, but through truth. Hidden victories are among the most powerful victories because they are not dependent on human validation or public approval. They don't come with applause or recognition. They arrive quietly in the stillness of a heart that has endured, obeyed, and remained faithful in obscurity. The chosen ones often experience their greatest breakthroughs in silence. There are no witnesses, no one to celebrate with, no grand celebrations or visible milestones, just a deep, unshakable sense that something has shifted internally, that God has done something that the world cannot yet see. And though the outside world may think nothing has changed, in the spiritual realm, a mountain has moved. For the chosen, much of life feels like being hidden. They work in silence, love in silence, struggle in silence, and grow in silence. They do not perform for others. They are not interested in proving themselves. Their victories are not fueled by ego, but by purpose. And because of this, their wins often go unnoticed by those who have watched them for years. They do not announce their growth. They do not publicize their healing. And they do not declare their deliverance. But make no mistake, they have been transformed. And that transformation is more powerful than any platform could ever provide. What people fail to see is that God does some of his deepest work in secret. He molds character when no one is watching. He heals wounds that were never spoken of. He rebuilds identities that the world tried to destroy. And when that process is complete, the result is not loud. It's steady, it's sure, and it's unshakable. The chosen emerge from seasons of pain not with bitterness, but with wisdom. Not with pride, but with quiet confidence. Their victory is not in what they gained, but in who they became through the fire. There is a profound strength in winning when no one thought you could, and never bothering to explain how. The chosen don't feel the need to retaliate or remind others of the doubt they endured. Their validation doesn't come from proving people wrong. It comes from knowing they were always right with God, that their journey, though misunderstood, was sacred. Every time they held their tongue instead of clapping back, they won. Every time they forgave instead of seeking revenge, they won. Every time they stayed faithful when others gave up, they won. And those victories, though unseen by the world, echo through eternity. Hidden victories teach patience. They teach endurance. They develop spiritual muscle. Because when you win privately, you learn to depend solely on God. You learn not to crave applause. You learn not to shape your worth based on reactions. You begin to live from within, rooted in a truth that doesn't change with circumstance. And that kind of victory can never be taken away. It's not temporary. It's not performative. It's eternal. It becomes part of who you are. Those who watched you suffer may still think you're in the same place, but they don't realize you've already crossed over. You may live in the same city, walk the same streets, carry the same name, but spiritually, you've moved. You've been elevated. You've stepped into a new level of authority, discernment, and clarity. And though it's not visible yet, it's irreversible. The enemy knows it. Heaven celebrates it. And in time, the earth will have to acknowledge it too. Sometimes, the greatest proof of victory is peace. Not a louder voice, not a bigger stage, but the stillness that comes from knowing you don't need to fight anymore. You don't need to explain. You don't need to seek revenge. You've already won in the most important place, the secret place, where only God saw your tears. Only God heard your cries. Only God knew what it cost you to keep going. And because He saw, He rewarded. Not with trophies, but with transformation. Not with fame, but with favor. The chosen live in a different rhythm. Their success is not measured in numbers, but in obedience. Their joy does not depend on circumstances, but on purpose. And when the victory comes, as it always does, it will not need a spotlight. It will speak for itself, quietly, boldly, eternally. For the chosen ones, trials are not random punishments inflicted by a cruel world. They are divine tools of refinement. Every betrayal, every closed door, every season of isolation is not meant to destroy but to shape. The path of the chosen is marked by pressure, discomfort, and delay, not because they are forgotten, but because they are being formed for something greater than they can yet comprehend. The pain they endure is not without purpose. It is preparation for weightier responsibilities, higher callings, and deeper revelations. What looks like suffering is often sacred training, and what feels like rejection is often divine redirection. People may look at the struggles of the chosen and assume that God has turned away. That favor has left. That heaven has grown silent. But it is in these very moments of silence that the most critical work is done. Not externally, but internally, in the soul. The trials strip away the noise, the false identities, the illusions of control. They uncover who the chosen really are beneath the applause, beneath the masks, beneath the expectations of others. They are left with nothing but raw truth. And in that truth, they find their foundation. It is easy to have faith when everything is going well, when prayers are answered quickly, when doors open with little resistance, when life moves forward in a straight line. But true faith is forged in the fire of waiting. It is built when nothing makes sense, when God seems distant, when the chosen are left alone with their doubts and fears. These moments are not accidents. They are invitations. Invitations to trust deeper, to surrender more fully, to lean not on sight but on the unseen. And the chosen, though they wrestle, eventually accept the invitation, because somewhere deep within, they know their story was never going to be ordinary. There is a peculiar ache in being misunderstood, overlooked, or underestimated, especially when the chosen have done nothing but love, serve, and give. But even this H serves a purpose. It teaches the chosen to love without needing applause. It teaches them to give without expecting return. It teaches them to move in obedience, even when there is no recognition. The trials refine the motives. They burn away the pride, the ego, the desire to be seen. What remains is pure. And it is this purity that makes them trustworthy. God will not elevate what has not been tested, because what hasn't been tested cannot be trusted. Every closed door, every delayed promise, every betrayal, every sleepless night, it is all part of a larger design. The chosen are being stretched so that they can carry more. They are being humbled so they can lead with compassion. They are being emptied so they can be filled with wisdom that cannot be taught, only experienced. And in the end, they do not just emerge stronger. They emerge transformed. They no longer crave what they once did. They no longer fear what they used to. They are not who they were. And that transformation becomes their power. People often look at someone walking in power, favor, and clarity and admire the outcome without understanding the process. They see the elevation, but not the crushing. They see the anointing, but not the nights spent crying alone. The chosen understand that nothing given by God comes without cost. And they have paid that cost in silence. They have given up comfort for character, ease for endurance, recognition for resilience. And in doing so, they have been prepared not just to receive blessings, but to steward them well. Pain becomes the teacher that comfort never could be. It awakens strength that the chosen didn't know they had. It forces them to depend on God in a way that prosperity never could. And as they walk through their trials, even when trembling, they grow. Their roots dig deeper. Their spirit becomes more grounded. They begin to see that the trials were never evidence of God's absence, but of His involvement. Because only those who are deeply loved are disciplined with such precision. Only those who are destined for greatness are prepared through such fire. So, the chosen do not despise their trials, even when they don't understand them. They may cry, they may question, they may fall to their knees in exhaustion. But they do not give up, because they have come to know that every trial is a doorway to more. More maturity, more insight, more purpose. The path is not easy, but it is holy. And through every trial, they are being shaped not into who the world wants them to be, but into who they were always meant to become. This moment that has arrived, The turning of the tables, the unveiling of truth, is not an act of revenge. It's not a petty outcome fueled by ego or the desire to see others suffer. It's a revelation, a divine unveiling. Something that had been concealed is now being exposed, and not by human effort, but by the hand of God. What has come to light is not to make others small, but to show what was real all along. The chosen ones were not elevated to make others feel less, but to finally bring into view the work that was done in secret for so long. This isn't about punishment, it's about clarity. For a long time, the chosen endured quietly. They were misjudged, criticized, gossiped about, or completely ignored. Not because they lacked value, but because others couldn't recognize it. There's a certain kind of discomfort people feel around someone who is deeply authentic, spiritually grounded, and unmoved by surface-level validation. That discomfort can turn into jealousy, and jealousy into cruelty. But even through all of that, the chosen ones didn't retaliate. They waited, not because they were weak, but because they knew something others didn't. They knew that if God allowed them to be hidden, there was a reason. If He allowed misunderstanding, there was a lesson. And now, that season of misunderstanding is over. What was hidden has been brought to the surface, and the truth, no matter how uncomfortable, is standing in plain sight. The ones who once mocked now reflect. The ones who ignored now observe. They are not being crushed. They are being confronted. Confronted with their own motives, their own fears, their own failure to recognize the sacred when it stood right in front of them. And that confrontation is painful, because it's not about what they've lost externally. It's about what they ignored internally. They are now sitting with the weight of seeing clearly what they once chose not to see at all. That's the nature of revelation. It's not just about bringing something new. It's about illuminating what was always there. Revelation is never just for one side. It's not only the chosen who receive clarity, it's also those who once misunderstood them. They are both being taught, both being refined. The chosen are seeing the power of patience and obedience, the reality that God fights battles that don't require words. And those who watched from the sidelines are being shown the cost of pride, the consequences of assumptions, the limits of human judgment. It's not about revenge. God's justice doesn't look like human retaliation. It looks like wholeness. It looks like restoration. And sometimes it looks like quiet realization. Tears behind closed doors. Regret that reshapes character. A deep, soul-level acknowledgement that says, I was wrong, and I didn't see it. And that's where humility begins to grow. Revelation can bring pain, but that pain often becomes the foundation for healing. People don't change when they're shamed. They change when they're shown the truth in a way that breaks through their pride. The chosen don't need to rub it in. They don't need to announce that the shift has happened. Their lives speak. Their peace speaks. Their elevation speaks. And that silent testimony often speaks louder than any public confrontation ever could. The people who are now crying behind closed doors are not crying because of the chosen. They're crying because they've been shown themselves. And seeing yourself clearly for the first time can be one of the most sobering experiences a person will ever go through. This season is not just about vindication. It's about alignment. Everything is being brought into place, not for show, but for purpose. The chosen are stepping into roles, callings, and seasons that were always theirs. And those who once resisted them may now begin to realize their part in that resistance. But here lies the grace. Revelation is an invitation. Even for those who once opposed you, the moment of truth is an opening for redemption. God doesn't expose to destroy, He reveals to heal. And for the chosen, that means moving forward without resentment, without the need to be proven right. Because the purpose was never about being lifted above others. It was about walking in what was always ordained. So now, as the shift unfolds and the revelation continues to ripple through hearts and rooms and private spaces, let it be a reminder God works in ways we can't predict, but always with intention. His justice is not for show. It's for setting things right. And when He moves, both the chosen and those around them are transformed, not through force, but through light, not through pride, but through truth. The path of the chosen has never been paved with ease or applause. It is marked by silence, struggle, and seasons of deep misunderstanding. But in that quiet obscurity, something sacred was taking place. God was molding, refining, and preparing His vessels in the dark. And now, the time has come. The shift has happened. The unseen has become undeniable. What was once buried has now been revealed. The laughter of your enemies has turned into silent regret, not because of vengeance, but because truth has risen to the surface. You were not being punished. You were being positioned. This moment is not about pride or superiority. It's about divine alignment. The tears behind closed doors are not yours to manage. Your task is to keep walking forward, anchored in grace, rooted in purpose. Because when God elevates the chosen, it is never just to honor them. It is to remind the world that He still sees, still hears, and still moves with perfect justice. They thought you were finished, silenced, forgotten. But while they were laughing in public, heaven was working in silence. And now, without warning, the shift has happened. And the very ones who doubted you are crying behind closed doors.